All right, we're back in another Sound the Battle Cry. And today we're going to continue the series that I started called Dangers of the Truth Movement. Today's show is going to be about shills, Sockpuppets, and Astroturfing, how the elite deceive and manipulate you. Kind of a funny title, isn't it? Well, today you're going to learn that it's not so funny, what the government and corporations and have been doing to you. But before I begin, this is usually it's a video podcast that's usually directed towards Christians, but this can apply to everyone because this can be helpful to anyone. And so please pay attention. This is very useful information. And just to let you know, I have been a quote unquote truther for over 10 years. I've done a lot of study, done a lot of research, and this topic is a very important one when it comes to modern day research and what happens on the internet. And so before I get into this topic, I'm going to be doing a few shows about this type of stuff, which is disinformation within the truth movement. And just in general, just in life, like how you're deceived by corporations and governments and all these types of things. So, and elements within them, military industrial complex, secret societies, all these other types of things. And one of the main reasons I wanted to make this show is because a lot of this stuff is viewed at as paranoid schizophrenia. No, paranoid delusions of conspiracy theorists. That there would actually be people out there, multiple different people, especially on the internet, but everywhere, who pretend to believe certain things and stand for certain things and endorse governments or products or corporations, all these other types of things, but they're completely lying, they're completely fake, and they're being paid to say those things. Also known as a shill. And there are many people out there living in a fantasy land where they think that these things don't actually exist. Well, I made the show today to offer you absolute proof that not only do they exist, but they are way more widespread today, especially on the internet, than you could ever imagine. Why is this important? Well, because if you know the truth about this, you have a less likely chance of being deceived, and because of that, a less likely chance of being manipulated. Because if you know about this, you're not going to get sucked in as easily into someone that is provoking you or lying and being a fake and being a troll. Trolling comment sections of Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Amazon and all over the place. These shills and these meat puppets and sock puppets, which we're going to learn about what those terms actually mean. Because you hear people say things like, he's a shill, he's a sock puppet, he's this, he's that. But very few people actually know what those terms mean. They can give you a surface level definition, but how many of you have actually sat down and studied what these things actually mean, what the proof is for these, the background, the history of all these things, these words? It's very important to study words. And the history of words and the history of these concepts, because the more that you know about these things, the less, like I said, the less likely you're going to be deceived. This is very important. It's essentially psychological warfare. Okay, and if you're fighting in a war, you want to have as much knowledge on your side as possible, so that you can win. You want to have the advantage. Okay? So that whether you're a Christian or not, doesn't matter. Directing this towards Christians today, they might say, well, you're not talking about a Bible study today. No, I'm not. But what I'm telling you is very important. And the Bible says, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Okay? So if you want to be wise as a serpent, you need to know about some of these things because they are being used against you to manipulate you every single day. And I am willing to bet that a lot of you who would be watching this video on YouTube spend a lot of time on the internet and you don't just watch Christian videos like this. You look at all kinds of stuff. You look at news articles. You go to comment sections. You are all over the internet. Okay? So this is a helpful tool for you so that you can navigate the modern war that we're in and the battlefield of the internet, the digital age that we live in. You must have the tools and the weapons that you need to fight and to survive. Because when you're deceived, you will be taken advantage of, and it could be very detrimental to you. And you could be getting sucked into things and provoked to do things or make decisions that you shouldn't have made. Okay? So please pay attention. All right, so before I get into this, I want to make 3 points here. Disinformation in the truth movement, or in general, disinformation and its purpose. 3 main purposes here. Number 1, disinformation. The point of it, to mislead those listening to it. Okay, that's 1 point. 1 purpose. Okay, one of the purposes of disinformation is to deceive you, to mislead you, to make you believe things that aren't false. And most of the time, disinformation isn't just something that's just all false information. It's a lot of truth with lies, disinformation mixed into it. Okay? That's the most dangerous type of disinformation, is with a lot of truth and a little bit of lies. Okay? And that's one purpose is designed to mislead you, point you in the wrong direction so you don't figure out the truth. Number 2, purpose of disinformation, to discredit the bulk of information that is true to the masses. Okay? When the masses of people and they read things in the mainstream media that someone or some news site regurgitated some piece of disinformation, or they put out some piece of disinformation, and it makes something sound ridiculous, right? Well, or it gets exposed that they reported something that was inaccurate. And then the mainstream media says, oh, hey, look at this alternative media website reported something, but it was actually false. Well, guess what? That discredited that piece of information, and it discredits that alternative news media outlet, and it discredits, number 3, those that repeat it. Okay? So this is one of the most common things that I see online all the time, and it's very frustrating. People on Facebook and other social media sites, they read a headline from a so-called truther website, an alternative media website, and then they just share it. They don't read the article sometimes. And even if they do read the article, they don't even check the website and the sources to make sure that the story is even true, okay? A lot of times I have seen people share so-called news stories, and it's literally from a satire website. You go and look at the website. It's a completely fake site, and the news story wasn't even true. And then when you repeat that, you're discredited. Nice job and nice trying to wake up your friends and neighbors to the truth when you're repeating nonsense like that. Whose fault is that? Those that came up with this information? No, it's your fault. It's your fault that you shared that story, that article, when you didn't even take the time to read the article or to see, hey, is this site even legit? You didn't even look into that. It's ridiculous. Take, a couple minutes and just look real quick. Say, hey, this story sounds pretty crazy. I wonder if it's true. No, you don't even check to see if it's true. You don't even check to see let's see, is anyone else reporting on this article? Can I verify it another way? No, instead you just blast it out there. Oh, check this out. You just very quick to believe something. Don't do that. You are discrediting yourself, and you're discrediting the truth. Because there could be a kernel of truth in the article, but it's ruined by the disinformation. Okay, so it's discrediting the information, it's discrediting you who repeat it. Or you could be misleading others who read it, and they think it's true. And then you just made yourself a disinformation agent by repeating that. Okay, so disinformation is very dangerous, and you are not helping to quote unquote wake anybody up, turn people to the truth by sharing these nonsense websites and stories. Okay, let's get actual, real, heavily documented news reports, news stories, or pieces of information, investigative studies. Make sure that you verify that these things are true before you share. This is very important, okay? Just want to get that out of the way before we get into this. So this is one of the main purposes I'm making this show, because I see so many people in my circle, it's a lot of Christians, but there's plenty of other people out there. You call yourself a truther, and you're sharing lies. How ironic is that? It's ridiculous. So you're not helping, you're hurting. And you're actually helping the New World Order. You are helping the elite to deceive mankind and keep your neighbors and friends asleep. You're shutting down them from any opportunity for you to talk to them, because they're going to read the nonsense that you post and they're going to go, wow, I can't believe anything that they post. I can't trust anything that they say because they're discredited in my mind. Sorry, but that's the truth. All right, let's get into this. Some of you may already know some of this information, but I guarantee you there's going to be some things in here that you never heard before. Okay, I got a lot of information in here. And what's amazing to me is so much of this is just readily available right out in the open. It's just that no one pays attention to it. No one looks. First of all, they're lazy. Second of all, most people just study what they're told to study. Even with it, not only with mainstream media, but within alternative media, they just go, well, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? What have they researched? You don't just go independently and say, hey, I'm going to go study this particular subject and find out the truth for myself and verify it as much as I can. Well, that's what we're going to do here today on this show. Now, the format of this show is not, it's not a bunch of movie clips playing for you in rapid succession and frames changing all the time. It's just me sitting here talking to you, okay? But I hope your attention span isn't so short that you can't pay attention and absorb this information, because it's very important information, I promise you. And it will help you to survive this modern internet age, an age of deception. And so please pay attention all the way through. All right, let's get into this. What is a shill? Okay, look at straight from Wikipedia, and we go, oh, Wikipedia, you were just talking about not sharing disinformation and sources. Listen, Wikipedia, you can go there and I can read a statement and I could say, okay, is this true or not? Let's look at the source that they used. Let's see if I can verify this independently, and that's what I use. Wikipedia is just a springboard, and you know I love using Wikipedia because it's right out in the open. It's mainstream information that is right out in the open that you can just look at. And it's not and most mainstream sources aren't going to contest it because it's right there. And everything that I put in here, I verified with other sources. Especially pay attention to the end, please, because we're going to go through definitions and examples of each of these terms. And then at the end, I have a few articles that we're going to look at that are absolute proof of all these things being carried out in modern day times. Okay? Which are tangible examples that have affected you personally. All right, what is a shill? A shill, also called a plant or a stooge, is a person who publicly helps or gives credibility to a person or organization without disclosing that they have a close relationship with the person or organization, otherwise known as a liar, a paid liar. That's what they are. Shills can carry out their operations in the areas of media, journalism, marketing, confidence games, or other business areas. A shill may also act to discredit opponents or critics of the person or organization in which they have a vested interest through character assassination or other means. Oh yeah, they fight dirty. They play real dirty. Okay? So if you ever heard someone use the term, like, you know, someone is a conspiracy theorist or something, go, oh, that person's a shill. And you think that they're just, you know, they're kind of stupid and they're just throwing around this word. This is an actual word. It's a real concept. And this is what a shill is. So they're in all different areas. Like I said, media, journalism, marketing, business areas, all over the place you have shills, okay? So the job is to discredit opponents or critics of the person or organization. Their job is to discredit opponents. Okay? That's what a shill's job is. In most uses, shill refers to someone who purposely gives onlookers, participants, or marks the impression of an enthusiastic customer independent of the seller, marketer, or con artist for whom they are secretly working. The person or group in league with the shill relies on crowd psychology to encourage other onlookers or audience members to do business with the seller or accept the ideas they're promoting. Okay? So a shill can discredit the opposition, he can criticize the opponents, or a shill can pretend to be an enthusiastic supporter, an enthusiastic customer of a person or an organization or a government. You know, depends on who it is. But they can pretend to be like, hey, wow, this is the greatest product I've ever used. You know, shills may be employed by salespeople in professional marketing campaigns. Plant and stooge more commonly refer to a person who is secretly in league with another person or outside organization while pretending to be neutral or a part of the organization in which they are planted, such as a magician's audience, a political party, or an intelligence organization. And they say, see double agent. Okay? Well, you can go there and see. That's a whole nother ballgame. We're not getting it. That'll be another show when it comes to agent provocateurs and double agents and all that other stuff. We're not talking about that in this show, but we will in another show. Right now, we're mostly focusing on the internet and paid trolls and trolls for corporations and governments and these types of things. But this is what I want you to pay attention to. You might say, yeah, I can understand someone being in a magician's audience and pretending to be like, hey, I need a volunteer. You come up to the stage, and and they're pretending like it's some random person, but obviously it's someone that they paid beforehand to go along with the trick. Most people understand, yeah, I understand that works. But when it comes to politics and major corporations and governments and military and stuff like that, that's when they go, I don't know if they would do that. I don't think that the government would do that. Well, we're going to see. Shilling is illegal in many circumstances and in many jurisdictions because of the potential for fraud and damage. However, if a shill does not place uninformed parties at a risk of loss, but merely generates buzz, the shill's actions may be legal. For example, a person planted in an audience to laugh and applaud when desired, see claque. We're going to talk about what a claque is in a little bit. Or to participate in on-stage activities as a random member of the audience is a type of legal shill. Just because it says citation needed here doesn't mean that it's not a true statement. It's just someone didn't put the citation there. Obviously, this is something that happens, and it has happened throughout history. I'm going to give actual examples from history of people faking it in audiences like we said, but in other things too. People plan in audiences to laugh and applaud, all these other things. They say, well, it doesn't hurt anybody, so it's perfectly legal. But it's 100% deception. And does it affect you, though? Well, you might say, well, they might not be taking my money. But you know what it's doing is it's portraying something that's not reality. It's deceiving you, and it's influencing you. It is influencing the audience. It is influencing whoever's watching. And that is important. even when it comes to entertainment. Shill can also be used pejoratively to describe a critic who appears either all too eager to heap glowing praise upon mediocre offerings or who acts as an apologist for glaring flaws, right? You ever see someone like that and they just over the top praising someone or something, or they're just defending someone no matter how awful they are, how wicked and deceitful and corrupt someone is, you still have people there defending them. Well, that's another example of a shill. All right, let's get into some specific examples here, okay? So we just kind of like define the word shill. Internet, this is one of the main focuses of the show, so let's talk about the internet, okay? In online discussion media, satisfied consumers or quote-unquote innocent parties may express specific opinions in order to further the interests of an organization in which they have an interest, such as a commercial vendor or special interest group. Okay? So online, when you got social media sites, discussion forums, all these other things, and people may be expressing their opinion, but all it's doing is furthering the interest of an organization. And they're tied together with that organization. They're being paid by them. In academia, this is called opinion spamming. Websites can also be set up for the same purpose. For example, an employee of a company that produces remember, I'm going to get into specific tangible examples and naming names of corporations and people and military and governments. Okay, so please stay with me. Okay, I'm going to name names. Websites can also be set up for the same purpose. For example, an employee of a company that produces a specific product might praise the product anonymously in a discussion forum or group in order to generate interest in that product, service, or group. In addition, some shills use sock puppetry. We're going to talk about sock puppets as a section in a little bit later. Some shills use sock puppetry where they sign on as one user soliciting recommendations for a specific product or service. They create a fake account with a different name. They then sign on as a different user pretending to be a satisfied customer of a specific company. We got a whole article about that concept later. In some jurisdictions and circumstances, this type of activity may be illegal. They keep saying that, but many people get away with it every day, including governments and corporations. In addition, reputable organizations may prohibit their employees and other interested parties from participating in public forums or discussion groups in which a conflict of interest may arise, or will at least insist that their employees and agents refrain from participating in any way that might create a conflict of interest. And that's the honest thing to do. I mean, if there's a conflict of interest, either don't participate or disclose that there could be a conflict of interest. Say, hey, I work for this company. Then you're just open about it. For example, the plastic surgery company Lifestyle Lift, here's an example, ordered their employees to post fake positive reviews on websites. As a result, they were sued and ordered to pay $300,000 in damages by the New York Attorney General's office. Okay? There is an example. This company, Lifestyle Lift, ordered their employees to post fake positive reviews on their websites. That's just one example of many. Okay? So many times, you see, that's why when you're looking at a product, see, this is practical advice, folks, okay? Many of you have bought products online from Amazon or other websites. And what do you do when you go to buy a product? You do a little research. What do you do to research? You read the reviews. Well, guess what? A lot of those reviews can be completely fake and paid for by the company. That's why you want to make sure you do as much research as you can about the actual product itself. Look at a bunch of different products, compare and contrast. I know it takes a little bit more effort and a little bit more time, but it's worth it, especially if you're going to spend quite a chunk of change on something, some type of product that you're going to use long term. Make sure you do a little bit more research than just reading some Amazon reviews, okay? Because that's not always the best indicator of whether you can trust a product or a company, okay? Research the company also, okay? Research the company and the product. All right, Let's continue. Gambling. Both the illegal and legal gambling industries often use shills to make winning at games appear more likely than it actually is. What does that do to you? If you think you have a higher chance of winning than you actually do, you're going to be more likely to participate and spend more money. For example, illegal 3-card Monte and shell game peddlers are notorious employers of shills. These shills also often aid in cheating, disrupting the game if the mark is likely to win. In a legal casino, however, a shill is sometimes a gambler who plays using the casino's money in order to keep games, especially poker, going when there are not enough players. The title of one of Earl Stanley Gardner's mystery novels, Shills Can't Cash Chips, is derived from this type of shill. This is different from proposition players who are paid a salary by the casino for the same purpose, but bet with their own money. Okay, so this is very important too. I don't recommend gambling at all. Because your hard-earned money, you shouldn't be playing games with, and especially you got a family to support, and you could be losing all your money. And make no mistake about it, I've met many people who are heavy gamblers, and it's very addicting. And you don't know how addicted you could get to gambling, and you could lose a lot. Okay, I know people who have gambled away their houses. I know people who have gotten one night, they got $20,000 in debt in one night. And in many other instances, people addicted to scratch tickets and gambling and lottery tickets. But the casino, though, is another one. And they have shills. They're telling you right here, they have shills. And these people aren't legitimate gamblers. They are not genuine gamblers. They're there to make you think that you can win or that more people are playing than they actually are. And it's going to suck you in, deceive you, and rob you of your money. Okay? It's a very, very deceptive world that we live in. This is just a practical all-around advice today. We're talking about the internet, gambling, buying products on Amazon. I mean, we're just surviving a world of deception. Okay? That's why when the disciples asked Jesus, what's going to be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? First thing he said is, take heed that no man deceive you. Because a lot of men are going to be trying to deceive you. All right, let's go on to the next section, marketing. It says, see also astroturfing. We're going to get into astroturfing. Yes, we are talking about the fake grass, but there's a reason for that. But in marketing, shills are often employed to assume the air of satisfied customers and give testimonials to the merits of a given product. This type of shilling is illegal in some jurisdictions, but almost impossible to detect. It may be considered a form of unjust enrichment or unfair competition, as in California's Business and Professions Code 17200, which prohibits any, quote, unfair or fraudulent business act or practice and unfair, deceptive, untrue, or misleading advertising. Okay? Which it is. It's a modern day form of false advertising. Companies are paying people to pretend like, I've used this product and it's the best one I've ever used in my life. And then you go, wow, look at the great reviews on this. And then you buy it. And then you're like, wow, this is trash. But then you post your review and it gets deleted or blocked or no one pays attention to it because there's, 50 other good ones. So that's how that works. Next, shills in auctions. Shills or potted plants. You get a lot of funny metaphors for names for what these things are. I just like the terminology. Potted plants. Shills are sometimes employed in auctions, driving prices up with phony bids. All right, so if you're a part of an auction, better watch out for this. They drive up prices with phony bids. They seek to provoke a bidding war among other participants. Often they are told by the seller precisely how high to bid, as the seller actually pays the price to himself, of course, if the item does not sell, losing only the auction fees. Shilling has a substantially higher rate of occurrence in online auctions, where any user with multiple accounts can bid on their own items. Oh, are we going to talk about eBay? Yes, we are. One detailed example of this has been documented in online auctions for used cars. Got to be careful buying that used cars online. Many online auction sites employ sophisticated and usually secret methods to detect collusion. The online auction site eBay forbids shilling, even though it's happened multiple times. Its rules do not allow friends or employees of a person selling an item to bid on the item, even though eBay has no means to detect if a bidder is related to a seller or is in fact the seller. They have no means to detect it, but they forbid it. Basically, their rule is completely useless and doesn't do anything to stop people shilling on auction sites like eBay. Okay? In his book, Fake Forgery, Lies, and eBay, Kenneth Walton describes how he and his cohorts placed shill bids on hundreds of eBay auctions over the course of a year. Walton and his associates were charged and convicted of fraud by the United States Attorney for their eBay shill bidding. Okay? So there, again, you have people completely fake on auction sites like eBay that are trying to drive up the price, and they're connected to the seller, or they're actually the seller themselves trying to deceive people. Okay? Get them to spend more money. That's what the deal is. Oh, so what's the common theme in all this? Money, money, money. That's right. The love of money is the root of all evil. I didn't say money is evil. I didn't say money is evil. It's not. It's what you do with it. And if you love it, if it drives you, the love of money makes you do wicked things like this and lie to people and act like a scumbag to try to rob people. All right. With the proliferation of live online auctions in recent years, shill bidding has become commonplace. Some websites allow shill bidding by participating auctioneers. These auctioneers are able to see bids placed in real time and can then place counter bids to increase the amount. One proxibid, I don't know if that's supposed to be in there, that word. I don't even know what that word means. No, sorry. One proxibid auctioneer's website states, at the request, maybe that is a term, proxy bid. I get it. At the request of the auction company, this auction permits bids to be placed by the seller or on the seller's behalf, even if such bids are placed solely for the purpose of increasing the bid. It's so crazy, dude. So watch out for that. The term can be applied to journalists. Oh, here we go. It can be applied to journalists, the media, commentators, and media outlets who have vested interest or associations with parties. Who are these parties? I don't know, maybe the government and corporations, and report in a way favorable to those interests. The term is often used by anti-establishment figures to denounce the media. Well, it's used to describe the truth, because it is the truth, okay? Let me tell you something, okay? 6 corporations own all of the media. Everything you see on TV, on the radio, and magazine and newspapers, owned by 6 corporations. Okay? Now, first of all, that just goes to show you all the diversity that you think you see is an illusion. And number 2, it also tells you that there's huge conflicts of interest with these corporations, because when those media outlets report on stories about those corporations that own them, you think they might have a little bit of a conflict of interest, and it might affect the reporting just a little bit. Well, it does. Even if you see critical articles in those media outlets against the corporations that own them, it's not really as damaging as it should be. And that's a whole nother ball game. Research and experiments. Here's another section. A shill in a psychology experiment or the like is called a confederate. In Stanley Milgram's experiment, in which the subjects witnessed people getting electric shocks, a confederate would pretend to be one of the experimental subjects who would receive the fake shocks, so that the real experimental subject would think that a draw of names from a hat was random. The confederate would always play the role of the learner and the subject would be the teacher. And the subject would think that this was a random draw from a hat containing papers that say learner and teacher. In performance art, such as deconference, which stands for Decontamination Conference, the Confederates were called deconfederates. When a large group of deconference attendees were asked to remove all clothing prior to the entry to the event, the deconfederates planted among the attendees would comply immediately with the request, causing all of the others to follow the orders and disrobe as well. I've seen videos of this. This is how crowd psychology works, okay? People always follow the crowd. Always, in the majority of cases. People will just do things that other people do for no reason whatsoever. They have no justification, they didn't do any research, they have no rationale, no reasoning, no justification for doing what they're doing. They're just doing it because someone else does it. I don't know if you guys, have you ever seen that video? I'm asking you guys like you're going to answer me. But you should see this video, okay? And it shows this person entering into the lobby of like a doctor's office or something. He comes, he sits down, and then a buzzer goes off. It's like, boop. And then everyone else is sitting there. They're all shills, right? These are all paid people, part of a social experiment. They all stand up. And the person sitting down kind of looks funny at all these people. Then they sit down. Then the beep goes off again. Boop. They all stand up. And every time it beeps, they all stand up. Well, eventually, this person that's not in on the experiment starts standing up at the tone of the beep because they don't want to feel left out of the crowd. Because that's one of the most powerful forms of control today, to make you submit to the ideology of collectivism, is the fear of being different. I might be considered a weirdo, an outcast. And people might look at me funny. They might criticize me. They might call me bad names because I'm different. And because people have such a strong fear about what other people think about them, they'll do whatever it takes to avoid criticism from the crowd. And so this person started standing up, and then you know what happened? This person kept standing up, and then one by one, all the shills disappeared. And then new people started coming in who weren't shills. They were also genuine people. And so then the person who wasn't a shill kept standing up at the beeps, and then these other people were watching it, and they started, and then the first person that was genuine left the room, and these people kept on doing it, the other genuine people, and they passed on the behavior. And it was all because these fake shills were just standing up at the beep. They were saying, hey, if you want to be part of the crowd, you have to do this. Stand up at the beep. And that could be applied to so many other different things. Like this deconference. They were asked to remove all their clothing before you come into the event. And then all these fake deconfederates, these shills, they comply immediately. They go in, everyone says, take all your clothes off. And who would do that? You enter into a place, someone says, take all your clothes off. Like, yeah, right, get out of here. And you wouldn't even go in. But this big group of people, they're just like, okay, I'm going to take my clothes off. And then they went in. So everyone else was like, okay. And then they took off their clothes because they didn't want to be left out of the crowd. Do you see how powerful this is? This is how shills can be used to control people's minds, to control the behavior of individuals and groups of people, large crowds, by shills. Okay? So, you got to get out of that crowd mentality. That if I don't follow the crowd, what am I going to do? My life's going to fall apart if everyone doesn't accept me. You need to get out of that mindset because it's controlling you and deceiving you. All right. Now, next section. Ooh, we're going to get a little more dangerous here. Interrogations. Police or military interrogators sometimes use undercover agents called plants. You ever hear someone say that? This guy's a plant. And then some of you might have mocked and be like, oh, yeah, a plant. Okay, you paranoid weirdo. You nut job. Conspiracy theorist. Well, guess what? It's a real concept. Police or military interrogators sometimes use undercover agents to assist with the interrogation of an individual or suspect. The plant can pose as a fellow inmate or internee, build a rapport, and earn the confidence of the interviewee. The plant may subtly suggest that telling the interrogators what they want to know is the sensible or right thing to do. You got the guy in there and he's like, hey man, the best thing what I can just tell you, man, the best thing that you can do is just tell him everything you know. Just tell him the truth. And it'll just going to help you so much. It's going to make things so much easier on you. And meanwhile, this guy's a complete fake and he's working for the police or the military. He's in these prison system. Wow. Does that actually happen? Yep. Yeah, it does. The plant, even if no outright confessions are obtained, minor details and discrepancies that come out in supposedly innocent conversation can be used to chip away at the interviewee. Some plants are in reality inmates or prisoners of war who have been promised better treatment and conditions in return for helping with the interrogation. So, if you ever end up in prison or in a FEMA camp, someone in there with you might be pretending to be your friend, to be on your side, and meanwhile, they're trying to get information from you. Uh-oh. The character played by William Hurt in the film Kiss of the Spider Woman is an example of this. One notorious UK case is that of Colin Stagg, a man who was falsely accused of the murder of Rachel Nichol, in which a female police officer posed as a potential love interest to try to tempt Stagg to implicate himself. Okay? So a female police officer in the United Kingdom posed as a potential love interest to try to get Stagg to implicate himself. And then he was falsely accused of murder. That's how wicked these people are. Okay? Now, does that mean all police, they're all evil? All military is evil? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the ones who participate in this trash, you are corrupt. And you're a traitor to your fellow man. Okay? If you are doing this to innocent people, you are absolutely a traitor. Okay? And let's get something else out of the way. Because we talk about the good cop, bad cop thing. And this is true, okay? The good cops that are out there, when you see corruption, when they see corruption and they don't say anything about it, they don't speak out against it and try to expose it for fear of losing their job, you are a stinking coward. And you're the reason, one of the major reasons that these corrupt cops and other people can keep getting away with what they're getting away with. Okay? And that's just a fact. All right. Related concepts. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this because that's for another show, but puppet government is another concept of a shill. Puppet, vassal, quisling, or satellite states have been routinely used in exercises of foreign policy to give weight to the arguments of the country that controls them. Examples of this include the USSR, also known as the Soviet Republic. The USSR's use of its satellites in the United Nations during the Cold War. These states are also used to give the impression of legitimacy to domestic policies that are ultimately harmful to the population they control, while beneficial to the government that controls them. Even outside the spectrum of sovereign powers, many multi-party democratic systems give foreign powers the capacity to influence political discourse through shills and pseudo sock puppets. Thanks to the reliance of many political parties on external sources of revenue for campaigns, it can be easy for a government or business to either choose which party it funds or to outright create one. And governments just create their own party, which is what are they going to do? They're going to support the system that they have. This way, they can either choose or to support existing minority voices that echo their views or form their own, using their funds and usually semi-covert influence to make them a more prominent voice. All right. And we're just going to skip past that real quick. All right. One last thing under the shill heading section. So we're going to move on to the next thing here. undercover operations. During covert operations, see, this is going to be a whole nother show, okay? Oh, it's going to be another show. Undercover operations. During covert operations or police investigations, agents may routinely claim to be of political views or a part of an organization in order to gain the confidence of the people they wish to surveil, to spy on. Sometimes you mean that the government and police and military would pretend to have a certain political view in order to spy on an organization or group of people? Yes, they would, and they do. Sometimes this goes further with the agents participating in acts on behalf of the organizations they infiltrate or falsely represent, as was the case during Operation Gladio and Operation Chaos. Go look those up. Okay? This isn't a conspiracy theory. Go look up the historical, openly documented facts, not theories, not a conspiracy theory. Go look up the facts of what happened. And I'm telling you, future shows, man, I am going to go into this more, because we really need to hear about this today with all this division going on here. Often the end goal is not just to gain information about the organization, but to discredit them in the eyes of the public. What did I say at the beginning? The purpose of disinformation? One of them is to discredit the group or the information in the eyes of the public, so the masses will not listen to the truth. So they infiltrate organizations and they commit violent acts and stuff like that. We're not going to get into that today, but shills will do it to gain information as well. However, these kinds of actions are more similar to false flag operations. Oh, there's that word, false flag. That's the phrase that conspiracy theorists like to use. Well, guess what? It's a real term. Okay. Go look up the term, look up the definition, look at the historical usage of it, and then stop giving ad hominem attacks, and because you don't know what you're talking about. False flag operations are real. These are more similar to false flag operations than typical undercover operations. In other examples, operatives may act in a manner they deem positive to assist an organization to which they cannot have overt ties. They want to help a group. All right. So that's a section on shills. You starting to get an idea of what a shill is? How about a claque? We'll just do a real quick section on claque just to figure out what it is, because in case you never heard that word before. Claque. A claque is an organized body of professional applauders. This is the history of the usage of the term, okay? Applauders in French theaters and opera houses. Members of a claque are called claqueurs. Or it looks like it has the U in there, so claqueurs. If I was French, I would say it like that. But I'm not French, sorry. No offense to French people, my wife's French. Hiring people to applaud dramatic performances was common in classical times. So this has been around for a long time. They've been faking it a long time. For example, when the Emperor Nero acted, he had his performance greeted by an encomium chanted by 5,000 of his soldiers. And we're going to read of a modern day example of this, okay? So Emperor Nero, he was a absolutely evil man, a narcissist evil man who had all these fake people, 5,000 of his soldiers, chanting his name and greeting him, pretending like it's all the people loving him. But this is an evil man who would cover Christians in fat and hang them in his garden and light them on fire for torches for his garden to light the garden at night. And he burned Rome to the ground and blamed it on the Christians. Yeah, this is the same guy. Now, I'm going to give an example after this of a modern day leader that you might know of, you may have heard of, who did the same thing as Nero. Had people chanting his name, applauding for him, and pretending like they really like him to give an appearance that he's loved by many. This inspired by the 16th century French poet Jean Dorat to develop the modern claque. Buying a number of tickets for a performance of one of his plays, he gave them away in return for a promise of applause. In 1820, claques underwent serious systemization when an agency in Paris opened to manage and supply claqueurs. By 1830, the claque had become an institution. The manager of a theater or opera house was able to send an order for any number of claqueurs. These were usually under a chef de claque, leader of applause, who judged where the efforts of the claqueurs were needed and to initiate the demonstration of approval. This could take several forms. There would be commissaires, which were the officers and commissioner, who learned this piece by heart and called the attention of their neighbors to its good points between the acts. So they talk to other people and like, oh, did you notice this part? This was so genius how they did this, and they came up with it. And they're completely lying. It's scripted, and they're influencing their neighbors in the audience to make them view the performance positively. It's insane. Laughers, laughed loudly at the jokes. Pleuriers were criers, generally women, feigning tears by holding their handkerchiefs to their eyes. And chatouillers, ticklers, you know I can't say any of these words. I know I'm butchering them, but please bear with me. The ticklers kept the audience in a good humor, while bissiers, encorers, simply clapped and cried bis, bis to request encores. Right? So what are all these people? They're a bunch of fakes. They're shills, they're claques, claqueurs, and they're giving you the illusion that they love their performance. They're clapping, they're laughing, they're crying, whatever it is, and it's designed to manipulate the audience, and it's nothing less than mind control. It's social control, it's crowd control. It's persuading the crowd to manipulate their emotions in a specific direction to manipulate their perspective of a performance. This practice spread to Italy, famously at La Scala Milan, Vienna, London, and New York. Even New York, not America, at the Metropolitan Opera, claques were also used as a form of extortion, as singers were commonly contacted by the chef de claque before their debut and forced to pay a fee in order not to get booed. It's like the mafia. Hey, listen up. All right, buddy? If you don't pay up, you're going to get the tomatoes, you're going to get booed, and it's going to be a complete flop for you, okay? So fork it over, buddy, all right? That's what they would do. That's what they would say to people. They probably still do it today. Okay. I wouldn't even doubt if like the movie premieres across the country, especially in Hollywood and stuff, there's just the audience is filled with clackers. Oh, I love this movie. It's amazing. You know, in theaters across the country, you're like watching the premiere of a movie and there's a bunch of paid people in there who are like cheering for the movie and oh, this movie was great. And then people go home, man, that movie was awesome. Why did you think it was so much more awesome than it was? Because the crowd thought it was awesome. That's why. These people they understand psychology, that people are very influenced by the response of the crowd. So if you can fake a crowd's response, then you're going to influence the real masses. It's very twisted. Now, unfortunately, we got to talk about here another example of someone who did what Nero did, a political leader that paid the clackers. And that would be, yes, my friends, Donald Trump. Donald Trump campaign offered actors $50 to cheer for him at presidential announcement. Uh-oh, sorry. Now, just in case you guys think that, oh, what did you vote for Hillary? No, I didn't vote for Hillary. I do not support Hillary. I'm not a liberal or anything like that. So don't flip out. You're stuck in the Hegelian dialectic, okay? Just unplug for a moment, tone it down a little bit, and listen, okay? Here's the facts. Donald Trump offered $50 to people to cheer him. Why would you need that if people genuinely support you? Okay? A casting call was sent out last week. This is from the news story. It came out in 2015, June of 2015. Casting call was sent out last week looking to cast people for the event to wear t-shirts and carry signs and help cheer him in support of his announcement. Donald Trump's big presidential announcement Tuesday was made a little bigger with the help from paid actors at $50 a pop. New York-based Extra Mile Casting sent an email last Friday to its client list of background actors seeking extras to beef up attendance at Trump's event. Quote, "We are looking to cast people for the event to wear t-shirts and carry signs and help cheer him in support of the announcement," reads the June 12th email obtained by The Hollywood Reporter. "We understand this is not a traditional background job, but we believe acting comes in all forms, and this is inclusive of that school of thought." The full email is at the bottom of the post. The pay was listed as $50 for less than 3 hours of work. According to the email, Extra Mile was reaching out to the potential extras in partnership with Gotham Government Relations and Communications, a New York-based political consulting group that has worked with Trump in the past. Gotham GR had no comment. No comment. Questions as to whether the Trump campaign had hired extras were first raised Wednesday by anti-Trump activist Angelo Carusone, who came across an Instagram photo showing a man he recognized as a background actor posing at the Trump event. Carusone screen grabbed the photo of the actor Domenico Del Giaccio and published in a blog post. The photo shows Del Giaccio with a woman identified in the now deleted Instagram post as actress Courtney Klotz. Del Giaccio has since deleted his entire Instagram account. Whoop, there it is. Look at these. Trump, make America great again. Those shirts literally look like they printed them. Like, you know that special paper you can get where you put it in your printer at home and then after you put whatever on it, you can iron it on your shirt. That's what it looked like they did with those shirts. Those are actors, people. And they deleted it after that. When reached for comment about the Trump casting call, a person who answered the phone at Extra Mile said, "We don't know anything about that." When pressed about whether this response was a denial of the story, the person said she couldn't comment further and hung up. No comment. Additional calls to Extra Mile went unanswered. Asked if Trump paid anyone to attend the event, campaign manager Corey Lewandowski said no, and that he had never heard of Extra Mile or Gotham GR. "Mr. Trump draws record crowds at almost every venue at which he's a featured speaker," Lewandowski told The Hollywood Reporter. "The crowds are large, often record-setting, and they're the best ever. Unquestionably the best. I always draw the greatest crowds, often with standing ovations. Mr. Trump's message is, make America great again." And Del Giaccio and Klotz did not respond. Request for comment, okay? And they talk about astroturfing. We're going to move on there. Then the email's down at the bottom. Okay, here's the event. You want to go look at that, go read the article if you want to go look at that. But in politics, we're going to talk about astroturfing soon. In politics, astroturfing is a term for hiring people to attend a rally or event in order to lend the appearance of grassroots support. Astroturfing is typically contracted out to political consulting firms, much like Gotham GR. Their practice is considered bad form. Hey, Gotham. What's Gotham? Where have I heard that before? Isn't that the city in Batman? Isn't that interesting? But that's for another day. All right. So sorry, guys, but Donald Trump did that. And I mean, I did a whole show, which has since been deleted from the internet, about the Donald Trump deception. What is it? The Donald deception, the Trump psyop, and all the mind control techniques that he used and techniques to persuasion to get elected. And what's that guy's name? Robert Mercer, who is the billionaire that funded him and also funds Breitbart and also funded this organization called Cambridge Analytica, which is involved in propaganda and other nations and helping to cause revolutions. And they were studying the the internet information of voters in America, and they help to influence the election. I mean, it was a whole setup. Okay, so you can get mad at me if you want. You think Trump's fighting the New World Order? Good for you. Whatever. The point is that this happens. Okay, people got played. You got played. No, people got paid to be actors and to cheer and to clap and to support Donald Trump, just like many other people. It's fake. It's in order to deceive you, okay? Because they're all bad. Republican, Democrat, all the establishment, they're all bad. They're all fake. They're all puppets. And they're shills for corporate interest, elite interest, secret society's interest. And they're definitely not there for the American public's interest, because they always lie and make promises. And then they don't follow through with them when they get into office. So let's move on to astroturfing. So that was clacking. Now we're on to astroturfing. Astroturfing is the practice of surfing in space. No, it's not. Okay, astroturfing is the practice of masking the sponsors of a message or organization. Or did I say organization? Organization. For example, political, advertising, religious, or public relations. Oh, no, not religious. Surely religious organizations couldn't do that. Oh, yes, they do. Practice of masking the sponsors of a message to make it appear as though it originates from and is supported by a grassroots participant. It is a practice intended to give the statements of organizations credibility by withholding information about the source's financial connection. The term astroturfing is derived from astroturf, a brand of synthetic carpeting designed to resemble natural grass, as a play on the word grassroots, right? So people say it's like the implication behind the use of the term is that there are no true or natural grassroots, but rather fake or artificial support. Although some astroturfing operatives defend the practice. Well, there is no defense of it. So astroturfing, it just means people say, this is a grassroots movement, man. Like Occupy Wall Street, it's a grassroots protest, and it's funded by, people like George Soros and stuff. So it's not grassroots, it's astroturfing. So remember that term when people say this is a grassroots movement, or you remember like people like Bernie Sanders or other people groups, and they say that their support has got a grassroots movement going, man. Whenever you hear grassroots, the first thing you should probably think of is astroturfing. It's probably not grassroots, because most grassroots movements that gain any sort of momentum that would change the system get squashed. Sorry, it's just the truth. So, definition. In political science, it is defined as the process of seeking electoral victory or legislative relief for grievances by helping political actors find and mobilize a sympathetic public, and is designed to create the image of public consensus where there is none. No public consensus, so we're going to create the image of public consensus. No one supports this law, but we're going to pretend that everyone does. And you ever read articles when they're talking about some totalitarian, Orwellian, ridiculous law that's taking away more of your rights, right? Like they're talking about passing a law to, spy on everything, videotape you every moment of your life and spy on all your emails. And how they'll write the article, it'll say, it'll act like most everyone doesn't have a problem with it, but then it'll say certain civil rights advocates or privacy advocates are criticizing this policy, this potential law. They'll marginalize the support and make it seem like only a tiny amount of people or no one just rejects it. But the majority of people there, it's only the civil rights advocates, the privacy advocates, right? But the shills the astroturfing is designed to create the image of public consensus when there is none. Astroturfing is the use of fake grassroots efforts that primarily focus on influencing public opinion and typically are funded by corporations and governmental entities to form opinions. Corporations and government. Boom, that's who controls this world, okay? And the secret societies control them. But corporations and governments working together, it's called Cronyism, crony capitalism. That's what runs this world, folks. On the internet, astroturfers use software to mask their identity. Sometimes one individual operates through many personas to give the impression of widespread support for their client's agenda, also known as Sockpuppets. Some studies suggest astroturfing can alter public viewpoints and create enough doubt to inhibit action. Yes, it can actually alter public viewpoints. In the first systematic study of astroturfing in the United States, Oxford professor Philip N. Howard argued that the internet was making it much easier for powerful lobbyists and conservative political movements to activate small groups of aggrieved citizens to have an exaggerated importance in public policy debates. Well, that professor may have been partially correct about the conservative political movements, but it's just as true, if not way more true, about the liberal political movements, okay? Because they are out of control. And they have plenty of astroturfing in there. Now, no doubt, okay, you can't be shocked that there's astroturfing going on among conservative and Republican political movements, okay? Because, to be honest, these Republicans are just as in bed with these banks and government and the corporations as the Democrats, okay? It's just they're more deceptive about it. They make you think they're more conservative. They're not. They just want the money, okay? So they pretend to have your viewpoint when they don't. Techniques. This is the techniques of astroturfing. Use of one or more front groups is one astroturfing technique. These groups typically present themselves as serving the public interest while actually working on behalf of a corporate or political sponsor. Well, that's pretty much every politician. They do astroturfing. Front groups may resist legislation and scientific consensus that is damaging to the sponsor's business by emphasizing minority viewpoints, instilling doubt, and publishing counterclaims by corporate-sponsored experts. The huge example of that, which we're going to look at the end, is when it comes to genetically modified foods. And companies like Monsanto and other pesticide manufacturing corporations like Syngenta and DuPont and all these other ones, they will fund fake groups and websites and all these other things to pretend to have grassroots opposition to legislation when it's just the corporations protecting their own interests. That's all it is. And it's sick, depraved stuff, man. We're going to talk about that. Fake blogs. Oh, yeah, even fake blogs. Fake blogs can also be created that appear to be written by consumers while actually being operated by commercial or political interest. Some political movements have provided incentives for members of the public to send a letter to the editor at their local paper, often using a copy and paste form letter that is published in dozens of newspapers verbatim, right? So these political movements, they'll send out mass emails to their subscribers and they'll say, hey, just copy and paste this, this letter that we say, and you just send it into your local paper and it'll make you look like you came up with this and you didn't even write it. Another technique is the use of sock puppets. We're going to have, like I said, we're going to have a separate section on that. But sock puppets, where a single person creates multiple identities online to give the appearance of grassroots support. Sock puppets may post positive reviews about a product, attack participants that criticize the organization, or post negative reviews and comments about competitors under fake identities. Astroturfing businesses may pay staff based on the number of posts they make that are not flagged by moderators. Persona management software may be used so that each paid poster can manage 5 to 70 convincing online personas without getting them confused. 5 to 70. One person could have 70 accounts. Okay? Pharmaceutical companies may sponsor patient support groups and simultaneously push them to help market their products. So these drug companies are in on this, okay? Bloggers who receive free products, paid travel, and other accommodations may also be considered astroturfing if those gifts are not disclosed to the reader. Listen, it's not just bloggers. Doctors get that. Doctors receive free products from drug companies, paid travel, vacations. Pharmaceutical companies will come in and they will pay for doctors to have vacations down in Bahamas and all these other things just so they can push their drugs on their clients, on their patients. It's sick. Okay? Analysts could also be considered astroturfing, since they often cover their own clients without disclosing their financial connection. To avoid astroturfing, many organizations and press have policies about gifts, accommodations, and disclosures, okay? So these are some of the techniques that is used with astroturfing. All right, so detection. How do we detect it? How have people try to detect it? Well, the government detects some of it, but they don't really care about a lot of it because they're using it. Persona management software can age accounts and simulate the activity of attending a conference automatically to make it more convincing that they're genuine. At HP, so, sometimes I look at an account and it looks like it was created yesterday. They can make it look like it was an older account. At HP Gary, employees are given separate thumb drives that contain online accounts for individual identities and visual cues to remind the employee which identity they are using at the time. They get really detailed about this. Mass letters may be printed on personalized stationery using different typefaces, colors, and words to make them appear personal. Very deceptive. According to an article in the New York Times, the Federal Trade Commission rarely enforces its astroturfing laws. They don't even... This isn't being cracked down on at all. It's just running rampant everywhere. It's like all deceptive. These governments and corporations and companies, they're just having tons of people pretending to support political parties, opinions, products, all entertainment, all these other things. And they're filled with fake people pretending to like stuff and support it, or fake people criticizing and attacking other competitors' stuff, or opposing political parties. According to an article in the New York Times, the Federal Trade Commission rarely enforces its astroturfing laws. However, astroturfing operations are frequently detected if their profile images are recognized, or if they are identified through the usage patterns of their accounts. Filippo Menser's group at Indiana University developed software in 2010 that detects astroturfing on Twitter by recognizing behavioral patterns. So what? There's really a lot of it isn't cracked down, especially if it's very beneficial to government corporations. They won't crack down on it. They'll just crack on stupid ones that are just like spam bots. History of incidents. Although the term astroturfing was not yet developed, an early example of the practice. So these are real life examples, okay? We just talked about what it is, right? We talked about astroturfing, the definition, techniques, and detection. But now let's look at the history of incidents. Just a few quick examples, and then we'll move on to the next point here. But this is some pretty interesting stuff, okay? You need to look at some of these examples of these incidents, okay? I'm going to take a quick break, actually. I'm going to come right back, and then we'll get into the history of the incidents. These are really interesting examples throughout history, and then we'll bring it up to modern day times. We're going to look at the origins of it, tobacco industry, internet, politics, environment, commercial, state-sponsored, military. Man, we're going to look at a bunch of stuff. So please stay tuned. And, please stay with me. And we're going to get right back into it. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. All right, we're back. And let's get back into it. Let's rip it up. Let's get into the history and origins of astroturfing. Although the term astroturfing was not yet developed, an early example of the practice was in Act 1, Scene 2 of Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar. In the play, Cassius writes fake letters from the public, quote unquote, to convince Brutus to assassinate Caesar. Okay, so that's an example of astroturfing. Also in the Bible, Jezebel wrote letters in Ahab's name, claiming to, falsely accusing that dude, did I forget his name? Not Nabal, what's his name? Naboth's vineyard. They stole his vineyard. They accused him of blaspheming God and the King, and totally fake. All right. Now, in the early 1900s, disposable cup vendor Dixie Cups convinced travelers to avoid public drinking cups found in trains and shops through a pamphlet called the Cup Campaigner. The pamphlet warned that public drinking cups could spread disease and did not disclose that the message was commercially motivated. Right, because they're like, don't drink those nasty public cups. Instead, drink Dixie Cups. We have the convenient solution for you. It's also called problem reaction solution, okay? You artificially manufacture a problem in order to cause a reaction and a response and a demand for a solution from the population, and then you manufacture the solution when you're the one that created the problem. The term astroturfing was first coined in 1985 by then U.S. Senator Lloyd Bentsen, when he said, "A fellow from Texas can tell the difference between grassroots and astroturf. This is generated mail." Bentsen was describing a mountain of cards and letters sent to his office to promote insurance industry interests. He said it was fake. All right, so let's look at some more of the history of astroturfing. Tobacco. As health advocates, like no one's an advocate for health. It's just amazing. Okay, and before we continue too about Wikipedia, I mentioned Wikipedia at the end. Listen, there's a bunch of astroturfing and writing from shills on Wikipedia. No doubt it's filled with trash, dude. Absolutely ridiculous. But, you know, what we're reading about today is mostly all true. As far as I can tell, everything is true, and we're going to be backing this up with even more articles at the end. And these are just openly documented facts. And there's plenty of articles that you can look at on Wikipedia and say, well, that's absolute junk. And you just have to do your research and check the sources and research the issue. Outside of Wikipedia, obviously, I'm not saying use this as your only source. I use this as a public teaching resource, to especially introducing people to topics, okay, and openly documenting things. But anyways, I just wanted to give that disclaimer about Wikipedia. I'm not saying trust everything on Wikipedia. That's ridiculous. Still got to check. Anyways, let's get back to tobacco. As health advocates began winning legislation to raise taxes and increase regulation of smoking in the U.S., Philip Morris, Burson Marsteller, and other tobacco interests created the National Smokers Alliance, also known as NSA, in 1993. The NSA and other tobacco interests initiated an aggressive public relations campaign from 1994 to 1999 in an effort to exaggerate the appearance of grassroots support for smokers' rights. According to an article in the Journal of Health Communication, the NSA had mixed success at defeating bills that were damaging revenues of tobacco interests. All right. So they tried to make it look like a grassroots movement, but it was generated by tobacco companies. Okay. Let's look at another one. Internet, email, automated phone calls, form letters, and the internet made astroturfing more economical and prolific in the late 1990s. In 2001, as Microsoft was defending itself against an antitrust lawsuit, Americans for Technology Leadership, ATL, a group heavily funded by Microsoft, initiated a letter-writing campaign. ATL contacted constituents under the guise of conducting a poll and sent pro-Microsoft consumers form and sample letters to send to involved lawmakers. The effort was designed to make it appear as though there was public support for a sympathetic ruling in the antitrust lawsuit. So once again, a corporation, Microsoft, pretended to be a grassroots movement to support Microsoft. Over and over and over again, we see examples of corporations, governments, political campaigns, all over the place that are pretending to have grassroots movements, but they're paying for it. Politics. In 2009-2010, an Indiana University research study developed a software system to detect astroturfing in the Twitter stream. Quote, some of these cases caught the attention of the popular press due to the sensitivity of the topic in the run up to the 2010 U.S. midterm politics election. And subsequently, many of the accounts involved were suspended by Twitter. The study cited a limited number of examples, all promoting conservative policies and candidates. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is where Wikipedia gets biased. So it's all conservatives. It's a bunch of trash. Liberals do that just as much. In 2003, GOP team leader.com offered the site's user points that could be redeemed for products if they signed a form letter promoting George Bush and got a local paper to publish it as a letter to the editor. More than 100 newspapers published tonight an identical letter to the editor from the site with different signatures on it. Similar campaigns were used by GeorgeWBush.com and MoveOn.org to promote Michael Moore's film Fahrenheit 9/11. So there's someone supporting the liberal side. So it's Republican and Democrat. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget's Fix the Debt campaign advocated to reduce government debt without disclosing that its members were lobbyists or high-ranking employees at corporations that aim to reduce federal spending. It also sent op-eds to various students that were published as is. Many organizations in the Tea Party movement are astroturfed, with direct connections to right-wing think tanks and lobbying organizations, and their activities controlled by wealthy supporters of the GOP. I mean, you could say the same thing for left-wing groups, like I said, Occupy Wall Street, Antifa. A lot of these left-wing groups funded the Young Turks. These people are funded by left-wing groups, okay? Now, and corporations and governments, I should say. Environment. Corporate efforts to mobilize the public against environmental regulation accelerated in the U.S. following the election of President Barack Obama. Russia has recently been accused of using astroturf tactics to drum up anti-fracking sentiment across Europe and the West in order to maintain dominance in oil exports through Ukraine. Right, so there's governments again. Commercial. In 2006, two Edelman employees created a blog called Walmarting Across America about two people traveling to Walmarts across the country. The blog gave the appearance of being operated by spontaneous consumers, but was actually operated on behalf of Working Families for Walmart, a group funded by Walmart. In 2007, well, before we move on there, look at that. Another example. Good old Walmart. Okay? Funding these two guys who created a blog, supposedly just traveling around to different Walmarts across the country. They just came up with this idea one day. We're just going to do this. Wrong. They were funded by Walmart. In 2007, Ask.com deployed an anti-Google advertising campaign portraying Google as an information monopoly that was damaging the internet. The ad was designed to give the appearance of a popular movement and didn't disclose it was funded by a competitor. Now, I would say that Ask.com was right about that Google is an information monopoly damaging the internet, but nevertheless, they were involved in astroturfing. In 2010, the Federal Trade Commission settled a complaint with Reverb Communication. And before we continue, some levels of it's just different levels of astroturfing. Some is worse than others, obviously. There's someone paid for some campaign like that, like Ask.com. Other ones are way more nefarious and sinister and totally deceiving large groups of people just so they can make money. 2010, the Federal Trade Commission settled a complaint with Reverb Communications, who was using interns to post favorable product reviews in Apple's iTunes store for clients. In September 2012, one of the first major identified case of astroturfing in Finland involved criticisms about the cost of a 1.8 billion, I think it's a pound or a euro, billion patient information system. Yeah, it's not a pound if it's in Finland, must be like a euro or something. Billion patient information system, which was defended by fake online identities operated by involved vendors. Okay? There you go. Fake online identities operated by involved vendors, paid for. September 2013, New York Attorney General Eric T. Schneiderman announced a settlement with 19 companies to prevent astroturfing. Astroturfing is the 21st century's version of false advertising, and prosecutors have many tools at their disposal to put an end to it, said Schneiderman. The companies paid $350,000 to settle the matter, but the settlement opened the way for private suits as well. Every state has some version of the statutes New York used, according to lawyer Kelly H. Kolb. What the New York Attorney General has done is perhaps to have given private lawyers a roadmap to file suit. And now state-sponsored. State-sponsored astroturfing. Yeah, that's some pretty sinister stuff here. An Al Jazeera 4-part miniseries documented Israel's attempt to promote more friendly pro-Israel rhetoric to influence the attitudes of British youth, namely through influencing already established political bodies, such as the National Union of Students and the Labour Party, or through the creation of other bodies not directly affiliated with the Israeli administration. Now, before I get absolutely blasted by two extremes, which I can tell are in the truth movement and among Christians. There are the Christian Zionists, which support the state of Israel no matter what they do and completely reject any criticism of Israel. And then there are the people who literally hate Jews and say Jews run everything. They're all evil and people living there aren't even real Jews. They're the Khazarians and all this other stuff. And the Zionists run everything. And if I don't agree with that, then I'm a Zionist shill, right? I'm a shill because of Zionism, right? Well, this is what I'll say about my position on that issue. And I mean, this is a multi-part show I want to get into in the future, but you have to make the distinction, okay, between the government of Israel and the people of Israel. That'll help you out a lot, okay? The government of Israel is absolutely corrupt, most of it. Absolutely corrupt. If you look into the work of Barry Shamash, he exposes a lot of that. And he wrote a book about the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. And also, Israel was involved in a lot of shady stuff. And the Mossad, a lot of bad stuff. And what do you call it? The Labor Zionist Party, the Masonic Labor Zionists, the Frankist Sabbateans, very, very bad people. Now, when it comes to your average Jew that lives in Israel or some other country, they're not evil. They're just regular people like you and I. Now, if you're a Christian, you understand that you don't agree and you don't believe what they believe. If they're a Jew, that's fine. You can say that what they believe is false, and you can tell them that, and you could tell them that they need to believe on Jesus. But to say that the Jews run the world and they're all evil is a bunch of trash. Now, are there Jews in position of power? Absolutely there are. Absolutely. But are they at the top? No, I don't believe they are. Well, what about the Rothschilds? Well, see, that's where we get into a whole other ballgame. But when you go to the top, the tippy top, you will find the Vatican, okay? And I could do many, many, many shows on that. But for now, I will say, yes, Zionists do play a part in the conspiracy. And they do have a big part. And everything the Israeli government does isn't good. And they're not always just defending themselves from Muslim terrorists. Is Hezbollah and Hamas, are they terrorists? Absolutely. Do a lot of Muslim countries want to wipe Israel off the map? Yep. Yes, they do. Is that good? Nope. Totally disagree with it. Okay. So there's some nuance here. It's a very complicated subject. You can't just have these blanket statements dismissing and demonizing entire groups of people. Okay? The Vatican is an organization. It's a corporation. Okay? And when I say the Vatican, I don't mean all Catholics. I mean the leadership structure, especially societies within them like the Jesuits and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta and the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, and these types of things, the Knights of St. John. Okay? So, let's get off that rabbit trail. I'm sorry. I had to just hit that real quick because I know every comment of every video is filled with people saying, the Jews! And it just... Can we just have a rational discussion? All right. Let's talk about the facts. So that did happen with Israel. It did. They did some astroturfing. In 2008, an expert on Chinese affairs, Rebecca McKinnon, estimated the country employed 280,000 in a government-sponsored astroturfing operation to post pro-China propaganda to drown out voices of dissent. So the government of China did that. June 2010, the United States Air Force, here we're at the United States, solicited for persona management software that would enable an operator to exercise a number of different online persons from the same workstation and without fear of being discovered by sophisticated adversaries. Personas must be, which means you, personas must be able to appear to originate in nearly any part of the world and can interact through conventional online services and social media platforms. Basically, the Air Force wanted these people to operate multiple different accounts and personas that were fake to fool you into making you think that they're real, and they're doing it on social media platforms, the military. The $2.6 million contract was awarded to Intrepid Corporation for astroturfing software the military would use to spread pro-American propaganda in the Middle East and disrupt extremist propaganda and recruitment. Okay, so the corporation Intrepid creates astroturfing software for the military. Okay? They're spending a lot of money on it. $2.6 million, but they're also spending it on other areas. Okay, let's look at this project, specific one. It's called Operation Earnest Voice. Okay? This is a military operation. Operation Earnest Voice is an astroturfing campaign by the U.S. government. The aim of the initiative is to use Sockpuppets to spread pro-American propaganda on social networking sites based outside of the U.S. The campaign is operated by the United States Military Central Command, also called CENTCOM. According to CENTCOM, the U.S.-based Facebook and Twitter networks are not targeted by the program. Lies. Because U.S. laws prohibit U.S. state agencies from spreading propaganda among U.S. citizens. As according to the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012. That's ridiculous that CENTCOM would say that. However, according to the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012, dissemination of foreign propaganda to domestic audiences is expressly allowed over the internet in America, including social media networks. Isaac R. Porsche, a researcher at the RAND Corporation, claims it would not be easy to exclude U.S. audiences when dealing with internet communications. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 specifically made it legal for the U.S. government to spread propaganda domestically in our own country to its own citizens. And I'm going to prove that to you right now. Domestic propaganda legalized. Since 9/11 and the appearance of greater media fluidity, propaganda institutions, practices, and legal frameworks have been evolving in the U.S. and Britain. Dr. Emma Louise Bryant shows how this included expansion and integration of the apparatus, cross-government, and details attempts to coordinate the forms of propaganda for foreign and domestic audiences with new efforts in strategic communication. Okay? So, these were subject to contestation within the U.S. government, resisted by Pentagon Public Affairs, and critiqued by some scholars. The National Defense Authorization Act for 2013, also known as the NDAA, Section 1078A, amended the U.S. Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948, popularly referred to as the Smith-Mundt Act, and the Foreign Relations Authorization Act of 1987. Allowing for materials produced by the State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors to be released within U.S. borders for the Archivist of the United States. Okay? So the NDAA in 2013 amended the Smith-Mundt Act to allow materials produced by the State Department to be released in the United States within the U.S. borders. Okay, government propaganda. The Smith-Mundt Act, as amended, provided the Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors, as amended, provided that, quote, the Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors shall make available to the Archivists of the United States for domestic distribution listen to this, motion pictures, films, videotapes, and other material 12 years after the initial dissemination of the material abroad. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit the Department of State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors from engaging in any medium or form of communication, either directly or indirectly, because the United States domestic audience is or may be thereby exposed to program material, or based on a presumption of such exposure. Hear that? Public concerns were raised upon the passage due to the relaxation of prohibitions of domestic propaganda in the United States. This legalized the use of propaganda by the U.S. government within our own country. Now, does that mean that the government hasn't been using propaganda before? No, it doesn't mean that. They've been using tons of propaganda against us for decades. But what this did was it openly legalized it. So now there's no resistance against propaganda. It's totally legal. No one can make a stink about it. Okay? So they said that nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit the State Department for engaging in any communication or distribution because their propaganda would affect the domestic audience or that they might be exposed to the propaganda. It doesn't prohibit them. There it is. Now, you can read about that on the Wikipedia file about propaganda, and then the specific subsection is wartime. Okay? Legalized propaganda in the United States, where government can release it on their own citizens. So back to Operation Earnest Voice. Details of the program. Okay, so this is that operation by the Air Force, Earnest Voice. The U.S. government signed a $2.8 million contract with Intrepid Web Security Company to develop a specialized software allowing agents of the government to post propaganda on foreign language websites. Main characteristics of the software, as stated in the software development request, are 50 user operator licenses, 10 sock puppets controllable by each user. It actually says that. Sock puppets. In the software, sock puppets are to be replete with This is what a sock puppet account comes with. This is how detailed they get. A sock puppet account comes replete with background, history, supporting details, and cyber presences that are technically, culturally, and geographically consistent. I mean, they really go into a lot of detail to make these sock puppet accounts seem legitimate. Sock puppets are to be able to originate in nearly any part of the world. A special secure VPN, allowing sock puppets to appear to be posting from randomly selected IP addresses in order to hide the existence of the operation. 50 static IP addresses to enable government agencies to manage their persistent online personas with identities of government and enterprise organizations protected, which will allow for different state agents to use the same sock puppet and easily switch between different sock puppets to look like ordinary users as opposed to one organization. And then they get 9 private servers based on the geographic area of operations the customer's operating within, and which allow a customer's online persona to appear to originate from. These servers should use commercial hosting centers around the world. So even if you check their person's IP address, it'll appear like it's from that region of the world. Virtual machine environments deleted after each session termination to avoid interaction with any virus, worm, or malicious software, okay? So that's Operation Earnest Voice. United States government creating sock puppet accounts. All right, now let's go into more detail about what exactly sock puppets are, okay? Let's learn it. A sock puppet is an online identity used for purposes of deception. The term, a reference to the manipulation of a simple hand puppet made from a sock, originally referred to a false identity assumed by a member of an internet community who spoke to or about themselves while pretending to be another person. The term now includes other misleading uses of online identities, such as those created to praise, defend, or support a person or organization, to manipulate public opinion, or to circumvent a suspension or ban from a website. So if someone gets banned from a website, they just create another fake account to get back on. But they use it to manipulate public opinion or to praise, defend, or support a person or organization. Sock puppet accounts, fake accounts. The significant difference between the use of the pseudonym and the creation of a sock puppet is that the sock puppet poses an independent third party unaffiliated with the puppeteer. Sock puppets are unwelcome in many online communities and may be blocked. Okay, so it's a fake account someone creates. They create multiple sock puppet accounts where they pretend to be someone else, but they're not. It's all the same person. And then someone could even use what's called meat puppets, which are actually other people that they hire or use to use those sock puppet accounts to make them seem like they're legitimate, but they're pretending too. Okay? History. The term sock puppet was used as early as July 9, 1993, but did not become common in Usenet groups until 1996. The first Oxford English Dictionary example of the term defined as a person whose actions are controlled by another. A minion is taken from U.S. News and World Report, March 27, 2000. The history of reviewing one's own work under another name predates the internet. Walt Whitman and Anthony Burgess both reviewed their books under pseudonyms. Another notable example was Benjamin Franklin. On October 21st, 2013, the Wikimedia Foundation condemned paid advocacy sock puppeting on Wikipedia, and on October 23rd, specifically banned editing by the public relations firm WikiPR. In August and September 2015, the WMF uncovered another group of sock puppets known as Orange Moody. Here's some types of sock puppets. Ballot stuffing. Sock puppets may be created during an online poll to submit multiple votes in favor of the puppeteer. A related usage is the creation of multiple identities, each supporting the puppeteer's views in an argument, attempting to position the puppeteer as representing majority opinion and sideline opposition voices. In the abstract theory of social networks and reputation system, this is known as a Sybil attack. Okay, so there can be online polls, all these other things, and people just create a bunch of different sock puppets to manipulate the results. Okay, so things aren't always as they appear, even with online polls. Sock puppet-like use of deceptive fake identities is used in stealth marketing. The stealth marketer creates one or more pseudonymous accounts, each one claiming to be owned by a different enthusiastic supporter of the sponsor's product, book, or ideology. Okay, we kind of talked about that, people doing fake reviews on Amazon or all kinds of other things. Strawman sock puppet. A strawman sock puppet is a false flag pseudonym created to make a particular point of view look foolish or unwholesome in order to generate negative sentiment against it. Okay, this is everywhere. I'm going to talk about this. Strawman sock puppets typically behave in an unintelligent, uninformed, or bigoted manner and advance strawman arguments that their puppeteers can easily refute. The intended effect is to discredit more rational arguments made for the same position. Such sock puppets behave in a similar manner to internet trolls. They are trolls. So, these strawman sock puppets, for instance, they'll say that they'll act like they're a truther, like they believe in exposing the New World Order and stuff, but then all of a sudden they'll start saying a bunch of ignorant trash, and they'll say how they they're racist against black people and all these other things, and they're discrediting the position, whatever's being talked about. Or they say something crazy like, they'll be talking about some legitimate government project and they'll be exposing it, and then they'll throw in some crazy disinformation in there. And it's just designed to make a straw man that everyone goes, oh, wow, that's a bunch of garbage, and it discredits all the information. Okay? A particular case is the concern troll, a false flag pseudonym created by a user whose actual point of view is opposed to the one that the sock puppet claims to hold. The concerned troll posts in web forums devoted to its declared point of view and attempts to sway the group's actions and opinions while claiming to share their goals, but with professed concerns. The goal is to sow fear, uncertainty, and doubt, aka FUD, within the group. Fear, uncertainty, doubt. Okay, so that's what they do. So you got to watch out, man. These sock puppets are everywhere. Facebook, YouTube comments, discussion forums, all over the place. Examples of sock puppetry, business promotion. In 2007, the CEO of Whole Foods, okay, this doesn't mean that organic food is bad, but unfortunately, Whole Foods has industrialized the organic movement and corporatized it and taken it over. So the CEO of Whole Foods, John Mackey, was discovered to have posted as Rehodeb, which looks like, I thought it said Deborah, but I guess I was just putting that in my mind. It's the same letters. But Rehodeb on the Yahoo Finance message board, extolling his own company and predicting a dire future for its rival Wild Oats Markets while concealing his relationship to both companies. Whole Foods argued that none of Mackey's actions broke the law. So they never try to deny it. They're like, we didn't break the law, but he was pretending to be other people and praising his own company, which is like, man, it's like, dude, you're a CEO of a corporation. You have time to go online doing that. But during the 2007 trial of Conrad Black, chief executive of Hollinger International, prosecutors allege that he had posted messages on a Yahoo Finance chat room using the name Inspector, attacking short sellers and blaming them for his company's stock performance. Prosecutors provided evidence of these postings in Black's criminal trial, where he was convicted of mail fraud and obstruction. The postings were raised at multiple points in the trial. Okay? Another example of the chief executive of a business posting messages in a Yahoo chat room. Book and film reviews, like we talked about Amazon. Here's a specific example. At an Amazon, an Amazon.com computer glitch in 2004 revealed the names of many authors who had written reviews of their books using pseudonyms. John Recke, who wrote the best-selling 1963 novel City of the Night, was one of the more famous authors unmasked in this way and was shown to have written numerous 5-star reviews of his own work. In 2010, historian Orlando Figes was found to have written Amazon reviews under the names Orlando Birkbeck, an historian, praising his own books and condemning those of fellow historians Rachel Polanski and Robert Service. The two sued Figes and won monetary damages. During a panel in 2012, UK fiction writer Stephen Leather admitted using pseudonyms to praise his own books, claiming that everyone does it. He spoke of building a network of characters, some operated by his friends, who discussed his books and had conversations with him directly. The same year, UK crime fiction writer R.J. Ellery admitted having used a pseudonymous account name to write a positive review for each of his own novels. Additionally, a negative review for 2 other authors. So a bunch of authors are doing that, using sock puppet accounts. David Manning was a fictitious film critic created by a marketing executive working for Sony Corporation to give consistently good reviews for releases from Sony's subsidiary Columbia Pictures, which could then be quoted in promotional material. David Manning was a completely fake film critic. He wasn't even a real film critic. He was totally a paid shill by Sony and Columbia to give them good reviews of the film. Once again, manufacturing reality, creating a complete illusion and deceiving you. Blog commentary. American reporter Michael Hiltzik was temporarily suspended from posting to his blog, The Golden State, on the Los Angeles Times website after he admitted posting there as well as on other sites under false names. He used the pseudonyms to attack conservatives such as Hugh Hewitt and LA prosecutor Patrick Frey, who eventually exposed him. Hiltzik's blog at the LA Times was the newspaper's first blog. While suspended from blogging, Hiltzik continued to write regularly for the newspaper. So an LA Times reporter was busted for making a bunch of fake names and attacking conservatives. Lee Segel, a writer of the New Republic magazine, was suspended for defending his articles and blog comments under the name Sprezzatura. In one of such comments, Sprezzatura defended Siegel's bad reviews of Jon Stewart. Siegel is brave, brilliant, and wittier than Stewart will ever be. And this is the stinking own guy praising himself. Oh man, you gotta be a narcissist to do the sock puppet trash. Government sock puppetry, state-sponsored internet propaganda. As an example of state-sponsored internet sock puppetry, we already talked about Intrepid. Yeah, we talked about that. Creative online accounts, Operation Earnest Voice. Here's another one. September 11, 2014, a number of sock puppet accounts reported an explosion at a chemical plant in Louisiana. The reports came on a range of media, including Twitter and YouTube, but U.S. authorities claimed the entire event was to be a hoax. The information was determined by many to have originated with a Russian government-sponsored sock puppet management office in St. Petersburg called the Internet Research Agency. Russia was again implicated by the U.S. intelligence community in 2016 for using paid trolls in the U.S. election, whatever. I don't even know if that's true, but it could be. But we have so many other cases of people getting caught and exposing this that we're just going to stick with what we can document. But Russia was caught doing using this agency, Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg. The Institute of Economic Affairs claimed in a 2012 paper that the United Kingdom government and the EU fund charities whose purpose is to campaign and lobby for causes the government supports. In one example, 73% of responses to a government consultation were the direct result of campaigns by alleged sock puppet organizations. 73% by sock puppets. Okay, so they can manipulate the public opinion very heavily. Okay, so what did we just look at? Shills, Astroturfing, and sock puppets. Okay, showed you exactly what they are, gave you a few examples, and showing you that they are spreading disinformation. They're discrediting a truth. They're discrediting those that repeat it. They're attacking those that are telling the truth. And they're completely manufacturing reality. They are praising governments and corporations and politicians and products. And they're pretending to be grassroots movements and all these other types of things. But they're fake. They're paid off. They're liars. They're fakes. And they're deceiving you. They're manufacturing reality. They're creating an illusion, making you think that all of this is real. Now, finish up this teaching. We're looking at a few things real quick. Few articles quickly that are amazing. Openly hard evidence, documented facts of this happening. Okay? I'm going to offer 2 government examples and a corporate example. All right? And then we'll finish up. This first article is called How Covert Agents Infiltrate the Internet to Manipulate, Deceive, and Destroy Reputations. Okay? So let's go see this article from theintercept.com. How covert agents infiltrate the internet to manipulate, deceive, and destroy reputations. This is one of the main articles I wanted to talk about. Okay, one of the many pressing stories that remains to be told from the Snowden archive is how Western intelligence agencies are attempting to manipulate and control online discourse with extreme tactics of deception and reputation destruction. It's time to tell a chunk of that story, complete with the relevant documents. Over the last several weeks, I worked with NBC News to publish a series of articles about dirty trick tactics used by GCHQ's previously secret unit, J-TRIG, which is the Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group. These were based on 4 classified GCHQ documents presented to the NSA and the other 3 partners in the English-speaking Five Eyes Alliance Five Eyes Alliance. Today, we at The Intercept are publishing another new JTrig document in full entitled The Art of Deception, Training for Online Covert Operations. Okay, so before we continue, if you don't know what GCHQ is, let's talk about this. It stands for Government Communications Headquarters. The Government Communications Headquarters GCHQ is an intelligence and security organization responsible for providing signals intelligence and information assurance to the government and armed forces in the United Kingdom. Based in the Donut, in the suburbs of Cheltenham, GCHQ is the responsibility of the country's Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs, but it is not a part of the Foreign Office, and its director ranks as a permanent secretary. GCHQ was originally established after the First World War as the Government Code and Cipher School, and was known under that name until 1946. Okay, and then it talks about the history of this, whatever. It's part of the British government. Okay, it's responsible for securing UK's own communications. And, all right. In 2013, GCHQ received considerable media attention when the former National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden revealed that the agency was in the process of collecting all online and telephone data in the United Kingdom via the Tempora program. Snowden's revelations began a spate of ongoing disclosures of global surveillance. Okay, so back to the article. So this is the GCHQ, okay, who they have a document. They have a secret unit called the Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group. So this is of the British government, and they had a document called The Art of Deception, Training for Online Covert Operations. By publishing these stories one by one, our NBC reporting highlighted some of the key discrete revelations. The monitoring of YouTube and Blogger, the targeting of Anonymous with the very same DDoS attacks they accuse hacktivists of using, the use of honey traps, which is luring people into compromising situations using sex, and destructive viruses. But here, I want to focus and elaborate on the overarching point revealed by all of these documents, namely that these agencies are attempting to control, infiltrate, manipulate, and warp online discourse, and in doing so are compromising the integrity of the internet itself. Among the core self-identified purposes of JTrig are two tactics. Number one, pay attention, to inject all sorts of false material onto the internet in order to destroy the reputation of its targets. And number two, to use social sciences and other techniques to manipulate online discourse and activism to generate outcomes it considers desirable. To see how extremist these programs are, just consider the tactics they boast of using to achieve those ends. False flag operations. This is what they say in their own language. Posting material to the internet and falsely attributing it to someone else. Fake victim blog posts, pretending to be a victim of the individual whose reputation they want to destroy. And posting negative information on various forums. Here is one illustrative list of tactics from the latest GCHQ document we're publishing today. So we scroll down here. This is from the document. You could see it on the screen. Disruption Operational Playbook. It talks about infiltration, ruse, set piece, false flag, false rescue, disruption, sting. Right there. Okay, moving on. Other tactics aimed at individuals are listed here under the revealing title, Discredit a Target. And they talk about setting up honey traps, changing their photos on social networking sites, writing a blog purporting to be one of their victims. I mean, it's just a total smear campaign. Then there are the tactics tried to destroy, used to destroy companies the agency targets. To discredit a company, they leak confidential information to companies, the press, post negative information, stop deals, ruin business relationships. I mean, it's dirty stuff, man. And this is the British government. GCHQ describes the purpose of JTrig in starkly clear terms. Quote, using online techniques to make something happen in the real or cyber world, including information ops. effects. Okay, so using that, deny, disrupt, degrade, deceive. The 4 Ds. Critically, the targets for this deceit and reputation destruction extend far beyond the customary roster of normal spycraft, which are, for instance, hostile nations and their leaders, military agencies, and intelligence services. In fact, the discussion of many of these techniques occurs in the context of using them in lieu of traditional law enforcement against people suspected but not charged or convicted of ordinary crimes, or more broadly still, hacktivism, quote unquote, meaning those who use online protest activity for political ends. That's who they're going to target. The title page of one of these documents reflects the agency's own awareness that it is pushing the boundaries by using cyber offensive techniques against people who have nothing to do with terrorism or national security threats, and indeed centrally involves law enforcement agents who investigate ordinary crimes. Okay, this is another slide from them. From their document, J-Trig. No matter your views on anonymous, hacktivists, or garden variety criminals, it is not difficult to see how dangerous it is to have secret government agencies being able to target any individuals they want who have never been charged with, let alone convicted of any crimes. With these sort of online deception-based tactics of reputation destruction and disruption, there is a strong argument to make, as Jay Lederman demonstrated in The Guardian in the context of the PayPal 14 hacktivist persecution, that the denial of service tactics used by hacktivists result in, at the most, trivial damage, far less than the cyber warfare tactics favored by the US and UK government. They result in trivial damage and are far more akin to the type of political protest protected by the First Amendment. The broader point is that far beyond hacktivists, these surveillance agencies have vested themselves with the power to deliberately ruin people's reputations and disrupt their online political activity, even though they've been charged with no crimes, and even though their actions have no conceivable connection to terrorism or even national security threats. As anonymous expert Gabriella Coleman of McGill University told me, targeting anonymous and hacktivists amounts to targeting citizens for expressing their political beliefs, resulting in the stifling of legitimate dissent. Pointing to the study she published, there's a link to the study right here. And I'll leave links to all these articles in the description, by the way. Pointing to the study she published, Professor Coleman vehemently contested the assertion that there is anything terrorist or violent in their actions. Government plans to monitor and influence internet communications and covertly infiltrate online communities in order to sow dissension and disseminate false information have long been the source of speculation. Harvard law professor Sunstein, a close Obama advisor and the White House's former head of Office in Information Regulatory Affairs, wrote a controversial paper in 2008 proposing that the U.S. government employ teams of covert agents and pseudo-independent advocates to cognitively infiltrate online groups and websites as well as other activist groups, okay? So we've been talking about the UK government, but now we're talking about the United States government, okay? So let's go on over to that article real quick, and then we'll come back to this one about the British government. But let's go on over back to Obama's government, and this is the article from Salon.com. I know it's not a great news website, but this is a good article. Salon.com from 2010, January 2010, Obama confidant spine-chilling proposal. Cass Sunstein wants the government to cognitively infiltrate anti-government groups. Okay? And then right here, check this out. Cass Sunstein has long been one of Barack Obama's closest confidants, often mentioned as a likely Obama nominee for the Supreme Court. Sunstein is currently Obama's head of the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, where, among other things, he is responsible for overseeing policies relating to privacy, information quality, and statistical programs. In 2008, while at Harvard Law School, Sunstein co-wrote a truly pernicious paper proposing that the U.S. government employ teams of covert agents. The United States government employ teams of covert agents and pseudo-independent advocates to cognitively infiltrate online groups and websites, as well as other activist groups, which advocate views that Sunstein deems false conspiracy theories about the government. There you go. Openly, this guy, Cass Sunstein, says we need the government to infiltrate groups which talk about conspiracy theories about the government. This would be designed to increase citizens' faith in government officials and undermine the credibility of conspiracists. The paper's abstract can be read and the full paper downloaded here, so you can look at that link there when I link it. Okay, so why is the U.S. government so concerned about conspiracy theories if it's not true? Right? Why are they so concerned about it? Sunstein advocates that the government's stealth infiltration should be accomplished by sending covert agents into chat rooms, online social networks, and even real space groups. Okay? Listen, guys, pay attention. Chat rooms and online social networks and even real space groups. He means in real groups in real lives. Okay? Like political groups and churches. Okay? This is openly admitting a person in Obama's administration calling for the infiltration of chat rooms and online social networks. You need to pay attention who are people that are friends with you on Facebook, that belong to groups, that comment on social networks in the comments, that belong to any type of group. You have openly admitted this guy calling for the government to infiltrate them. He also proposes that the government makes secret payments to so-called independent credible voices to bolster the government's messaging, on the ground that those who don't believe government sources would be more inclined to listen to those who appear independent while secretly acting on behalf of the government. So some people you would think are independent, but they're actually being funded by the government. This program would target those advocating false conspiracy theories, which they define to mean, quote, an attempt to explain an event or practice by reference to the machinations of powerful people who have also managed to conceal their role. Sunstein's 2008 paper was flagged by, it says this blogger, some blogger, and then amplified by an excellent report by Raw Stories' Daniel Tenser. One last paragraph here. There's no evidence that the Obama administration has implemented a program of this type. Well, they're not going to admit it. This guy called for it, and obviously we have so much evidence of sock puppets. We have the British government openly. We have evidence of them doing it. But now we're going to say no, and Obama just never did it because he's just a nice guy, right? I hope you're not that naive. Though in light of this paper and the fact that Sunstein's position would include exactly such policies, that question certainly ought to be asked. Regardless, Sunstein's closeness to the president, as well as the highly influential position he occupies, merits an examination of the mentality behind what he wrote. This isn't an instance where some government official wrote a bizarre paper in college 30 years ago about matters unrelated to his official powers. This was written 18 months ago. This was back in 2010. At a time when the ascendancy of Sunstein's close friend to the presidency looked likely in exactly the area he now oversees. Additionally, the government-controlled messaging that Sunstein desires has been a prominent feature of U.S. government actions over the last decade, including in some recently revealed practices of the current administration, and the mindset in which it is grounded explains a great deal about our political class. All of that makes Sunstein's paper worth examining in greater detail. And there's a few more things from this article, but you're going to have to go and read the rest of that article. Yeah, it's talking about covert propaganda. But anyways, I'll link the article in the description. And let's get back to the notes here. Okay, so that's what am I reading here? Oh, I'm sorry. Back to the article. Okay. So That was Harvard Law professor Cass Sunstein, close friend, Obama advisor. He wrote that paper advocating the U.S. government infiltrate online groups and websites, especially people who believe in conspiracy theories. See, and that's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. Sunstein also proposed sending covert agents into chat rooms and social networks. We saw that. And ironically, the very same Sunstein was recently named by Obama to serve as a member of the NSA review panel created by the White House, one that, while disputing key NSA claims, proceeded to propose many cosmetic reforms to the agency's powers, most of them which were ignored by the president who appointed them. But these GCHQ documents are the first to prove that a major Western government is using some of the most controversial techniques to disseminate deception online and harm the reputations of targets. Under the tactics they use, the state is deliberately spreading lies on the internet about whichever individuals it targets, including the use of what GCHQ itself calls false flag operations. They said it. I'm not calling it false flag operations. The article isn't. The GCHQ, the government organization of Britain, called it false flag. And emails to people and families and friends. Who would possibly trust a government to exercise these powers at all, let alone to do so in secret with virtually no oversight and outside of any cognizable legal framework? Then there is the use of psychology and other social sciences to not only understand, but shape and control how online activism and discourse unfolds. Today's newly published document touts the work of GCHQ's Human Science Operations Cell, devoted to online human intelligence and strategic influence and disruption. Okay, so here's some more slides from the GCHQ document. Under the title Online Covert Action, the document details a variety of means to engage in influence and info ops, as well as disruption and computer net attack, while dissecting how human beings can be manipulated using leaders, trust, obedience, and compliance. Look at this. They got these slides describing they call it magic techniques? Why is it calling it magic techniques in experiment? That's crazy. But they talk about the psychology of influence. They make these huge slides with all their plans. Sociology, it's just sick. Documents lay out theories of how humans interact with one another, particularly online, and then attempt to identify ways to influence the outcomes or game of it. They call it a game. They got the charts here. Here's all the slides. Identifying and exploiting fracture points, mirroring, accommodation, mimicry. We submitted numerous questions to GCHQ, including: Number 1, does GCHQ in fact engage in false flag operations where material is posted on the internet and falsely attributed to someone else? And number 2, does GCHQ engage in efforts to influence or manipulate political discourse online? And number 3, does GCHQ's mandate include targeting common criminals, such as boiler room operators, or only foreign threats? As usual, they ignored those questions and opted instead to send their vague and non-responsive boilerplate. Quote, "It is a long-standing policy that we do not comment on intelligence matters. Furthermore, all of GCHQ's work is carried out in accordance with the strict legal and policy framework, which ensures that our activities are authorized, necessary, and proportionate. There is a rigorous oversight, including from the Secretary of State, the Interception, Intelligence Services Commissioners, and the Parliamentary Intelligence and Security Committee. All our operational processes rigorously support this position." These agencies, okay, so that's what they said. They deny it. They say it's all legal. Yeah, whatever, you're liars. These agencies' refusal to comment on intelligence matters, meaning talk at all about anything and everything they do, is precisely why whistleblowing is so urgent. The journalism that supports it so clearly in the public interest, and the increasingly unhinged attacks by these agencies, so easy to understand. Claims that government agencies are infiltrating online communities and engaging in false flag operations to discredit targets are often dismissed as conspiracy theories. But these documents leave no doubt that they are doing precisely that. Evidence that it's real. Whatever else is true, no government should be able to engage in these tactics. What justification is there for having government agencies target people who have been charged with no crime for reputation destruction, infiltrate online political communities, and develop techniques for manipulating online discourse. But to allow those actions with no public knowledge or accountability is particularly unjustifiable. All right. Excuse me. And then there's a link to the documents referenced in this article right here at the bottom, The Art of Deception, Training for a New Generation of Online Covert Operations. You can go read it yourself and see the proof, okay? All right, so we're just about the end here of this teaching. And the last thing we're going to look at is a corporate example, okay? We're going to look at Monsanto. Monsanto hired paid internet trolls to counter bad public image. Lawsuit claims the document also alleges that Monsanto hires think tank to spread information favoring the company, okay? This is on InfoWars, but it's also on a bunch of other sites, the anti-media. The document, okay, Monsanto hired paid internet trolls. Agrochemical, because this isn't a theory, this actually is documented. Agrochemical giant Monsanto, also known, if you don't know who Monsanto is, they create the genetically modified seeds. They are the creators of the herbicide called Roundup, which has the active chemical in it, glyphosate, the herbicide, which is absolutely causes cancer, very poisonous. And they also have a history of creating nasty substances such as Agent Orange and DDT. Yeah. So, agrochemical giant Monsanto hired internet trolls to combat negative perceptions about their brand on social media and across the internet, according to a lawsuit filed by U.S. Right to Know, a nonprofit organization working for transparency and accountability in the American food system. The company has also been accused of manufacturing scientific research to support their products, which is absolutely true. The allegations come amid 50 lawsuits filed in a U.S. district court in San Francisco that claim exposure to Roundup herbicide caused them or their loved ones to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and that Monsanto covered up the risks, as summarized by U.S. Right to Know in the press release. Absolutely true. Their Roundup herbicide causes disease, and Monsanto has paid out millions and millions of dollars to cover up that fact because they're scumbag, wicked, evil people who only care about money and don't care about thousands of people getting sick and dying of cancer. They're disgusting corporation. In a court document dated April 24th, the plaintiff's attorneys accused Monsanto of operating a program called Let Nothing Go. The program is allegedly intended to leave nothing, not even Facebook comments, unanswered. Hear that? Facebook comments. Through a series of third parties, it employs individuals who appear to have no connection to the industry, who in turn post positive comments on news articles and Facebook posts defending Monsanto, its chemicals, and GMOs. Sound familiar? You ever watch a video or read an article against Monsanto and a bunch of people pop up in the comments attacking everyone who made the video, wrote the article, or are supporting it, and they say everyone's just an ignorant idiot and it's a pseudoscience and all this other garbage? Yeah. Well, here you go. Proven documents that show they were paying people to leave these comments. Monsanto was. According to the document, the alleged program was revealed in the deposition of David Hearing, who works in Monsanto's U.S. Technology Development Department. The document also alleges that Monsanto hires think tanks to spread information favoring the company. Quote, Monsanto quietly funnels money to think tanks such as the Genetic Literacy Project, total shills, an American Council on Science and Health, and organizations intended to shame scientists and highlight information helpful to Monsanto and other chemical producers, the filing claims. Yeah, another website out there, it's called Quack Watch. That guy's a bunch of garbage. Stephen Barrett, he's a total shill. The allegations regarding the Genetic Literacy Project have been somewhat confirmed by outside reporting, though it is unclear whether Monsanto funded the organization directly. Still, the company says indisputable ties to the organization and reportedly requested favorable coverage from scientists there. According to a 2015 investigation by Bloomberg entitled How Monsanto Mobilized Academics to Pen articles supporting GMOs, quote, the articles in question appeared on the Genetic Literacy Project's website in a series called GMO Beyond the Science. Eric Sachs, who leads Monsanto's scientific outreach, wrote to 8 scientists asking them to pen a series of briefs aimed at influencing public policy, GM crop regulation, which is genetically modified crop, and consumer acceptance. 5 of them obliged. Paid them. Monsanto spokeswoman Charlotte Lord downplayed the significance of relationships of core. Our goal is to elevate public dialogue. Blah, 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 blah. Blah. There's a lot of misinformation generated by groups who are opposed to agriculture and biotechnology. No, there's a lot of misinformation pushed out by you. Okay, you scumbag, lying corporation. The lawsuit, however, cites an example of one study from the year 2000 that goes beyond spreading information, and if the plaintiff's claims are accurate, crosses the line into arguably fraudulent science. That study, led by Dr. Gary Williams, found that there were no health risks associated with Monsanto's Roundup herbicide. But of course, no health risks, right? But as the court document claims, it has now been cited by 555 sources since its publication, and by the EPA many times, and is but one of many ghost-written, quote, science pieces by Monsanto. The study's conclusions have since been invalidated by other research. In a 2015 email presented into the current lawsuit, William Hayden's, a Monsanto scientist, seemed to acknowledge the alleged practice of ghostwriting, referring back to the 2000 study as an example of how to do it in the future with other researchers. All right. So I think this is it for this article about the, paid shills, let nothing go program. Yeah. Okay. So you can go look more into that too. You can see the document. If you go to the U.S. Right to Know, they talk about it. There's links to this document about the Let Nothing Go program, how Monsanto said, leave nothing, not even Facebook comments, unanswered. Okay? So, that's Monsanto. So you got British government, American government, and an American corporation, Monsanto, multinational corporation. But other ones, you can't assume that that's the only one. They're the only ones doing it. Obviously, if they're doing it, other corporations are doing it. So, I know we've looked through a lot of information, but I wanted to make sure there was no doubt left in your mind at the end of this teaching that Shills, Sockpuppets, and Astroturfing is real. Absolutely real. The Shills and Sockpuppets are real. Astroturfing is real. This practice and who is engaged in it? Governments, corporations, politicians, and the elite, those that are controlling them, they are engaging in this. Okay? It's a dangerous place out there on the internet, on TV, and even in other groups that meet in person. They're being infiltrated by fake people. They're paid actors, paid infiltrators to pretend to be supporting a position of a government or a corporation. They're paid to pretend to be like you, and they're paid to spread disinformation or to attack you and discredit those that are telling the truth. Absolute proof that this is going on. So you need to be very vigilant, like I said at the beginning, in what you share, to document it and check the sources as much as you can. And do not share disinformation. Be careful who you trust. Be careful of online profiles of people on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and comments, because they just might be a fake. And the sooner we recognize this, the sooner things can be cleaned up. Trolls could not be fed. They should not be engaged with. They should be ignored. They should be blocked. And they should be cut out of all discourse on the internet. And that's how you fight against them. So that regular, rational, real discourse will prevail. That's what needs to be done. Okay? And it is a war. It's psychological warfare. It's information warfare. And I have this quote here. I'm going to end with this quote. Where'd I put it? All right, let me get this quote real quick. Okay? This quote is by, I got this hanging on my wall just to remind me. Okay? This is quoted by a man named Jay Byrne. Jay Byrne is Monsanto's former director of public affairs and former internet outreach programs director. Okay? And he was giving a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, and he came to his conclusion, his concluding slide. And Jay Byrne from Monsanto quoted Michael Dell, the founder of Dell Computer Corporation, founder and CEO, okay? And this is the quote by Dell that the Monsanto guy quoted. Think of the internet as a weapon on the table. Either you pick it up or your competitor does, but somebody is going to get killed. Now you remember that the next time you go online, you're reading articles and you're talking with people. All right. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Please go back and check out the other shows if you haven't. Please like, thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, share the video everywhere as much as you can. Get the truth out there. Got more shows coming in the future. Please stay tuned for them. Thank you. Been another Sound the Battle Cry Radio. Have a good day.